Hey everyone, it's Megan, and today I'm going to show you how to make Yarny from Unravel out of Polymer Clay. I really love this game so much and I'm super excited about this, so let's get started. You're going to need red and white clay, a couple clay tools. The shape of this one's not as important, but this one you definitely need. You need a tool that has this edge on it. An X-Acto knife, scissors, and an eye pin. I cut the top of the eye pin off of it. So first we're going to be making the head. So you're just going to take your red clay, and I'm going to use my Yarny that I made already just to have an example of the size because I want to keep them the same size. So I'm just cutting a small chunk off the red, and we're going to roll it into a ball. And then once you get it into a ball shape, you're going to pinch the top in like the top two spots. You're going to pinch the top into the shape of his ears or horns, or I don't know if it's supposed to be anything, but just the shape of his head. You're going to pinch the top to make that shape. And then we're going to take this tool, and this is how we're going to do that kind of yarn look. I just took the tool and indented the clay, and I tried to keep it fluid and make all the lines connect, and I just kind of went diagonally across, and then I started doing a couple lines coming off of some of the other lines just to kind of try to make it look like these were maybe pieces of yarn going over itself. So I just indented and kept messing around with it. You definitely need to hold your piece really lightly so that you don't smudge the lines or mush the lines too much. So just be really gentle with how you hold it. And then I just kind of went over a few lines that maybe got messed up just to indent them a little bit more so they really stood out. And there it is. So now we're going to move on to the body. And you're just going to take another piece of red clay, and I'm just going to roll it up into a ball and then kind of roll it into like a hot dog shape. And you're going to roll it out. It needs to be a little thicker, and then kind of shape it into this like long, thin, rounded triangle. And then we're just going to do the same thing again. We're going to take this tool and we're going to do all of our indentions. And I found with the body, it's better if you go horizontally across in an angle versus vertically. It just kind of looked better, and that's kind of how the yarn looks like it's going horizontally across his body in the game. So I tried to just kind of duplicate that while I was doing these indentions. And you just want to take your time with this. I went over a few of the lines I already did multiple times. I kind of, just blended some of them if they got a little messed up, and just went over them again to really make the indentions stand out. And there's the body. So now we're going to move on to the yarn tail, which is the yarn that comes off of Yarny so that he can use to climb on things and jump across things and do all the things that Yarny does. So I'm just going to take a piece of red clay and I'm going to roll it out into a really thin snake. And you want to get this pretty thin. And then I'm taking my tool for the detail on this. I'm just taking my tool and I'm holding it really gently and running it diagonally across, kind of like doing a spiral down the snake so that it kind of looks like a piece of yarn. And then you're just going to take the tail and the body, and I stuck it on the back, and then I took the end of my tool and just blended it in, and I kind of put the tail coming out of like a cross section of the indentions to make it look like maybe it was coming out of from underneath some of the other yarn. And I just like blended it in, and then I just kind of went over those lines and indented them a little bit more because they got a little bit smudged while I was blending. And now we're going to make the arms, which is pretty much the same process. You don't have to make the arms as thin as you made the tail, so it can be a little thicker. I just used the Yarny I have for the length of his arm. And then I did the same thing. You can kind of see it a little better here. You just like use your finger to let the clay roll as you spiral down it with the tool. So that's what it ended up looking like. And then I just placed it on the thinner end of the body and kind of just pressed it on top. And we're going to do the same thing for the other arm. And I did shorten the arm a little because it ended up, after you do the spiraling, sometimes it can stretch the clay. So I ended up shortening it a little. And then I just did the other arm and I placed it overlapping the other one. And that's fine. You don't have to worry about blending because then it'll just kind of look like, you know, the yarn laying on top of itself. So now we're going to move on to the legs, which I was just trying to make sure that I kept these the same length. And especially if you're going to have your Yarny standing, you just want to make sure that they're the same length. And so I just took the clay. I haven't done any design on it yet. I'm rolling it up from the one side just to kind of create the shape of a foot, and then just kind of like smishing it together and blending it to shape his foot. And then I just flattened the bottom of his foot a little, especially, like I said, if you're going to have Yarny trying to stand, you want to make sure that you flatten his foot a little bit so he'll stand better. And now I'm going to do the design on the legs. And so you're just going to do it down to the ankle, and then you can flip it and do the same thing to the foot, and then you might need to flatten the foot out a little bit again. And so now I'm just taking both feet and I'm placing them on the back of Yarny. And again, I just blended it in, try to make it look like maybe it was just, you know, like it's just yarn coming out of his body. And now we are going to move on to Yarny's eyes. So you're going to just cut off a little tiny piece of white. You don't need a whole bunch for this. And we're going to make these tiny little circles and just try to keep them really round. You can do any like shape for his eyes. He does have different emotions where his eyes are a little thinner or things like that. So you can do whatever you want with his eyes, but I just went with round. And so now I'm just placing on the second eye and press them down a little bit. And then we're going to do the design on the eye because his eyes are yarn also. So you definitely want to have the indentions on the eyes. You don't want it just to be flat. So I just kind of went in with that same tool and made some indentions so that it kind of looked like it was yarn also. And now I'm just taking my eye pin and I cut it a little shorter with my scissors, and I'm going to make a hole in the bottom of the head. And then I pulled it out and I'm going to now push the pin into the body. And I decided to make Yarny sitting instead of standing like my other one. So he's sitting up. And so then I just pushed it into the body and then took the head and put it through the hole that I had previously made. It just makes it a little easier so you're not having to press so hard onto the body. And so now I have my baking pan and I am just getting Yarny in the position that I want him to be. You definitely want to make sure he's in the position you want while baking. So I just use both of my tools and my hands just really lightly to get his arms and his legs placed the way I want them. And then I also did create the little flower from the first level, if you've played it, which was super easy. My camera died, so I thought I'd just go ahead and make it. And all it is a bunch of thin snakes rolled up into circles. So it was really easy to make, but I thought it'd be really cool to have that as well. So that is it. There is Yarny, and I love this game so much. I think he is so adorable, and if you haven't played it, you definitely should. Also, the game creators do show you how to make Yarny out of yarn, so I will put the link to that below too if you want to make a Yarny out of actual yarn. But I really wanted to make him out of polymer clay, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!